Have you ever felt like you were fighting for something you couldn't even name, as if destiny had a grip on you before you took your first breath? That was Jacob. He wasn't even born yet, and he was already locked in an unseen war. His mother, Rebecca, carried a peculiar unrest. Inside her, two babies wrestled, not just for space, but for something far greater. It wasn't normal. It was a cosmic struggle playing out in a human womb. Concerned, desperate. She did the only thing a soul in distress can do. She sought God. And God's answer, it wasn't what she expected. It shattered every norm. 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples destined to be divided. One will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Think about that for a moment. God himself declared that the natural order, the cherished tradition of primogeniture, would be flipped on its head. The eldest, the rightful heir, would yield to the youngest. Even before Jacob drew heir, he was marked for a grand destiny, yes, but also for a life steeped in challenge, conflict, and cunning. The day arrived. Esau, red and hairy, burst forth first. A man of the wild, a hunter, but right behind him, clinging to his heel, was Jacob, as if trying to pull him back to prevent him from taking the lead. That wasn't just a detail. It was a prophecy. His very name, Jacob, means he who grasps the heel, or supplanter. From birth, he seemed driven to fight, to supplant, to seize what he desired. The years passed, stretching the brothers into stark opposites. Esau, the rugged hunter, impulsively trusting in his own strength, admired by his father Isaac. Jacob, the quiet dweller of tents, observant, strategic, forever close to his mother. One lived by instinct, the other by calculation. But this difference, this foundational disparity, wasn't just a quirk of personality. It was the fuse of a conflict, a divine drama about to ignite, changing everything. Here's the challenge. Are you living by instinct or by intentional design? Are you blindly accepting the natural order of your life? Or are you looking for the divine reversal? The God-ordained redirection that only faith can see. The raw deal, trading forever for a fading fix. This isn't just a verse you'd frame. This is a moment that will split your soul in two. It's about the value you place on the unseen, the eternal, versus the craving for the immediate. The tangible. Jacob's destiny wasn't dependent on his cunning alone. It was about to collide with a monumental decision, a choice that would define his journey forever. The acquisition of the birthright. In ancient times, the birthright was everything. It wasn't just money, it wasn't just property. It was the double portion of the inheritance, the leadership of the family, and crucially, the spiritual blessing that flowed from God through the patriarch. It was a lineage, a promise, a future. For Esau, though, this sacred right seemed less important than a hot meal, a bowl of stew in a moment of gnawing hunger. Jacob knew this. He watched. He waited. He was a master of timing, poised for the perfect opportunity. One day, Esau returned from the hunt, utterly depleted. His body screamed for rest, his muscles ached, his stomach echoed with emptiness. The aroma of Jacob's red lentil stew drifted from the tent, a siren song to his famished soul. "Give me some of that red stuff, I'm starving," Esau pleaded, almost gasping, his words betraying his desperation. Jacob saw it. Not just hunger, but a profound vulnerability. An opening. He made a proposal that would change history. "Sell me your birthright right now." Esau laughed, a hollow, desperate sound. "What good is a birthright to me if I'm about to die of hunger?" To Esau, the birthright was an abstract, distant concept. Hunger was a present urgency, a screaming need. Jacob, however, understood its true, immeasurable value. To seal the deal, Jacob demanded an oath. Esau, without hesitation, swore it. A simple oath, a fleeting moment. He traded his spiritual and material future for a single steaming bowl of lentils. He ate. He was satisfied. And then he left, oblivious, dismissive, having despised something infinitely greater than any mere material inheritance. This episode wasn't just a revelation of Esau's contempt for God, given heritage. It was a chilling exposé of how easily we trade our true birthright for temporary gratification. So, I challenge you, what birthright are you, even now despising? What eternal promise are you trading for a fleeting satisfaction? A momentary comfort? A fleeting pleasure? What are you selling your future for? Deception's echo, the price of a stolen blessing. You think deception is a shortcut? Think again. It's often a long, painful detour through decades of unforeseen consequences. Jacob had the birthright, yes, but something even more essential was still out of reach. Isaac's final, irrevocable blessing. In the patriarchal tradition, this wasn't just a father's kind words. It was a prophetic declaration, a divine pronouncement that sealed a chosen son's future. And for Isaac, that blessing belonged to Esau. But Rebekah, Jacob's mother, was not about to let destiny unfold naturally. Not if she could nudge it, manipulate it, seize it for her favored son. Isaac was old, his vision dimming, sensing his days were few. He called Esau in secret, a quiet, intimate moment between father and son. Go hunting, prepare me a savory dish. He had no idea Rebekah had overheard every word. Driven by an almost fierce desire to see Jacob as the heir, she immediately concocted a daring, dangerous plan. She called Jacob. I heard your father. Now, listen to me. Go to the flock, bring 2 young goats. I will prepare a stew your father loves. Then you will take it to him, pretending to be Esau, and receive the blessing. Jacob hesitated, fear chilling his blood. What if my father touches me? Esau is hairy, and I am smooth. If he discovers me, instead of a blessing, I will bring a curse upon myself. But Rebekah was unyielding. Let that curse fall on me, my son. Just do as I say. This was a mother's desperate gamble, a family's defining moment. Donning Esau's clothes, his arms covered with goatskins to mimic his brother's rough hair, Jacob brought the dish to his father. Isaac was surprised. How did you return so quickly, my son? Jacob, with a lie already on his tongue, replied, The Lord your God made everything work out for me. Suspicion gnawed at Isaac. He asked to touch him. He felt the rough skin, the familiar clothes, but the voice was Jacob's. Then, he asked, directly, piercingly, Are you really my son, Esau? And Jacob lied again. It is I. Isaac ate. And then he declared the blessing, May God grant you abundance, may peoples serve you, and may your brothers bow down before you. Shortly after, Esau arrived, jubilant, with his own savory dish. And then the truth, brutal and undeniable, crashed down. Esau's anguished cry, Bless me too, father, echoed through the tent, but it was too late. The blessing had been given, irrevocable, and Esau's hatred for Jacob, raw and consuming, became uncontrollable. As soon as the mourning for our father is over, I will kill Jacob, Esau vowed. Jacob, the deceiver, would now pay the price of his deception. He would need to flee. His life was in danger. His destiny, so painstakingly, so manipulatively acquired, was about to send him into a wilderness of isolation. The question for you, how much pain, how much separation, Are you willing to endure by grasping for what you want through your own cleverness, instead of trusting God to provide it in His way and His time? What blessing are you trying to seize, instead of waiting for the one God has ordained? The stone pillow. When God meets you at rock bottom, ever been at rock bottom? Completely alone, broken, nowhere to go. That's exactly where God often meets us. Jacob knew his life hung by a thread. Esau, consumed by fury, was determined to exact revenge for the deception that cost him his father's blessing. Rebekah, ever alert, realized the mortal danger. "Your brother wants to kill you," she warned Jacob. "Flee immediately to my brother Laban's house in Haran. Stay there until his fury passes." To avoid suspicion, Rebekah deftly convinced Isaac that Jacob should go to Haran to find a wife, far from the Canaanite women who displeased the family. Isaac agreed, and unknowingly sent Jacob off with a fresh blessing. "May the Almighty God bless you, make you fruitful, and grant you many descendants, making you a great nation." Jacob left, alone. The path stretched long, uncertain, and barren. For the first time, he was without his mother's strategic support, without the familiar comfort of home, without any guarantees about his future. As he walked, the weight of his actions must have pressed down on him. He had the blessing, yes. But now he was a fugitive, a man stripped bare of everything but a raw promise. Night fell, and with it, utter exhaustion. Without shelter, Jacob stopped to rest. He picked up a stone, a cold, hard piece of the earth, and used it as his pillow. He lay down, an exile under the vast, indifferent sky, and slept. It was then, in that place of absolute vulnerability and despair, that he had a dream that would irrevocably change his life. He saw a ladder stretching from the desolate earth to the highest heavens, with angels ascending and descending upon it, and at the very top, God Himself appeared to him. The voice of the Almighty cutting through the silence and his despair. "I am the Lord, the God of your father, Abraham, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your descendants. And behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." Jacob awoke, shaken, profoundly impressed. That place was not ordinary. "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it," he exclaimed. He named the place Bethel, house of God, and made a vow. "If God is with me on this journey and brings me back safely, then the Lord will be my God." With a fragile mixture of hope and uncertainty, Jacob continued his journey. Little did he know that in Haran, he would face years of challenges, deceptions, and profound growth that would transform him into the man God intended him to be. So where are you looking for comfort and promises right now? Is it in fleeting distractions or in the very place of your deepest despair, where God is waiting to meet you, just as He met Jacob, and offer you an unbreakable promise? The deceiver deceived, a taste of his own medicine. What goes around, comes around, especially when God is orchestrating a profound lesson about integrity and justice. After an arduous journey, Jacob finally neared Haran, the land of his uncle Laban. Tired but clinging to the promise of Bethel, he arrived at a well where shepherds gathered. The well was covered by a massive stone, requiring the collective effort of many to remove it for watering the flocks. As he observed, Jacob asked if they knew Laban. "Yes, we know him," they replied. "And look, there comes Rachel, his daughter, with her sheep." When Jacob saw Rachel, something shifted within him. She was beautiful, graceful, and in that moment, he felt his arrival in Haran wasn't just an escape, but the dawn of a new story. Compelled by an unexpected force, Jacob strode to the well, and alone, with strength born of fresh purpose, he rolled the heavy stone away. He watered Rachel's flock, moved, deeply affected. He introduced himself as her relative, and overcome with emotion, kissed her, weeping with joy. Rachel, thrilled, ran to tell her father. Laban, on hearing about Jacob, came rushing to greet him with warm embraces. "You are my own flesh and blood," he declared, welcoming Jacob into his home. Jacob began to work for Laban, and after a month, the uncle, ever the pragmatist, asked, "You shouldn't work for free. What will be your wages?" Jacob didn't hesitate. "I will work 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter." He was deeply in love, and time seemed a small price to pay. The 7 years flew by, a testament to the depth of his affection for Rachel. When the time was completed, he approached Laban to fulfill the agreement. But on the wedding night, under the cover of darkness, Laban pulled his own deception. Instead of Rachel, he presented Leah, the elder daughter. Only at dawn did Jacob realize the cruel trick. Furious, he confronted Laban. "Why did you deceive me?" Laban, with a cunning familiar to Jacob himself, replied, "In our land, it is not customary to marry the youngest before the firstborn. Finish the wedding week with Leah, and then I will give you Rachel too, if you work for 7 more years." Jacob, who had once deceived his own father and brother, now felt the crushing weight of deception on his own skin. He finally married Rachel, but his life with Laban would be marked by even greater challenges, a relentless cycle of exploitation and manipulation. So, what spiritual lessons is God trying to teach you through difficult relationships or circumstances? Are you resisting the very process He is using to refine your character, to make you more like Him? Sometimes, the hardest lessons come when we reap what we've sown, only to learn that God's grace can turn even our bitter harvests into profound growth. A nation forged in the furnace, family, favoritism, and fear. You think your family dynamics are complicated. Try living with 2 wives, 2 concubines, and a conniving father-in-law who constantly changes your wages. Laban's house wasn't just a place of challenges for Jacob. It was the crucible where his great family, the very beginnings of a nation, would be forged. But his married life began with excruciating tension. Leah, the wife he didn't choose, felt profoundly rejected, unloved. Rachel, the woman he adored, faced the agony of barrenness, the frustration of not being able to have children. But the Lord saw Leah's suffering. He opened her womb. Her first son, Reuben, was born. His name meaning, "The Lord has seen my affliction." Then came Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Even with children, Leah couldn't win Jacob's love. Rachel, on the other hand, lived in anguish. "Give me children, or I shall die," she cried to Jacob, who replied, "Am I in the place of God?" Desperate, Rachel followed Sarah's example and gave her servant Bilhah to Jacob. Bilhah bore 2 sons, Dan and Naphtali. Not to be outdone, Leah also offered her servant Zilpah, who bore Gad and Asher. Time passed, and God again looked on Leah, who had 2 more sons, Issachar and Zebulun, and then a daughter, Dinah. Only then, at last, did God remember Rachel, allowing her to conceive. Joseph was born, the son who would later become the powerful governor of Egypt. After years of relentless labor and watching his family grow into a sizable clan, Jacob knew he could no longer live under Laban's exploitation. He asked his father-in-law for permission to leave. Laban, realizing God had blessed Jacob and that his presence brought him prosperity, tried to convince him to stay, offering new terms. Jacob proposed an agreement. He would keep all the speckled or spotted sheep and goats from the flock. Laban agreed, but, true to form, immediately tried to deceive him, removing the animals with these characteristics and sending them far away. However, God gave Jacob wisdom, an unusual strategy. He caused Jacob's flocks to multiply exponentially, growing greatly rich. His prosperity swelled so much that Laban's sons began to openly envy him, and Laban himself began to look at Jacob with suspicion. Jacob realized his time there was ending. Then God spoke to him, "Return to the land of your fathers, and I will be with you." It was time to leave, but this farewell, after 20 years of serving Laban, would not be peaceful. Jacob, without warning Laban, gathered his family, servants, and immense flocks, and departed in secret. When Laban discovered the escape, he was furious and pursued them. But the night before the confrontation, God appeared to Laban in a dream and warned him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." Confronted by this divine barrier, Laban only demanded a formal farewell and made a peace alliance with Jacob. Do you trust God's protection, even when you've made a mess, even when you are taking matters into your own hands? Are you willing to finally release control and let Him lead you, even out of situations you created? The night of transformation, wrestling with God for your identity. Imagine facing your greatest fear, your deepest regret, the person you betrayed, knowing they might kill you. That was Jacob's night. Laban was dealt with, but Jacob now faced a much larger, more terrifying problem. Esau. Time does not erase the memory of a brother's rage, especially when that brother swore to kill you. Had 2 decades softened his fury? To test the waters, Jacob sent messengers ahead with generous gifts, hoping to appease him. But the response was chillingly terrifying. Esau was coming to meet him, and he had 400 men with him. Jacob's heart seized in his chest. Terror, raw and primal, gripped him. He divided his large group into 2, thinking, if Esau attacks one group, the other may flee. But then, for the first time in his life, the cunning, self-reliant Jacob broke. He prayed. He cried out to God with an anguish he had never known. "O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me with the mothers and children." That night, something extraordinary happened. Jacob was left alone by the Jabbok River, a solitary figure consumed by fear and desperate prayer. Then a mysterious man appeared and began to wrestle with him. The fight was intense, raw, primal. It lasted through the long, dark hours until dawn. When the man saw that Jacob, stubborn, determined, would not give up, he touched Jacob's hip socket, dislocating it with a single touch. Even wounded, limping in excruciating pain, Jacob clung to him. He wouldn't let go. "I will not let you go unless you bless me," he declared. His voice hoarse, his will unyielding. Then the man spoke words that echoed through eternity. "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have wrestled with God and with men and have overcome." Jacob finally understood. He had not wrestled with just any man. He had wrestled with God himself. He left that place limping, scarred, but profoundly, irrevocably transformed. He was no longer Jacob, the deceiver, the supplanter. He was Israel, the one who strives with God, the Prince of God. Here's your challenge. What fears are you running from? What unaddressed conflicts, what past betrayals, what raw anxieties are holding you captive? God wants to meet you in that place of wrestling. Are you willing to cling to Him through the pain, through the struggle, so you can emerge transformed, with a new name, a new identity forged in His presence? The embrace of grace, forgiveness beyond expectation. Can true forgiveness heal a wound that runs 20 years deep? Can it truly erase the shadow of betrayal? The sun rose, piercing the lingering darkness, and Jacob, now Israel, saw it in the distance. Esau approaching with his 400 men, his heart hammered. Would this be the moment of his death, Or was mercy even possible? To try and ease the tension, Jacob organized his family and servants. The maids and their children went first, followed by Leah and her children. And finally, Rachel and Joseph, the most beloved. He himself took the lead, stepping forward. A man limping, vulnerable, but filled with a new resolve. As he drew near to Esau, he bowed 7 times to the ground, a gesture of profound humility, respect, and perhaps quiet desperation. Then, something utterly unexpected happened. Something that defied every expectation, every fear, every calculation. Esau ran towards Jacob. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The world held its breath. But instead of attacking, instead of vengeance, Esau embraced him tightly. Tears streamed down the faces of both brothers. After so many years of separation, so much hatred, so much fear, so much pain, peace finally reigned between them. "Who are these people with you?" Esau asked, his voice perhaps choked with emotion. Jacob introduced his family, and each bowed before Esau. Then Jacob insisted that Esau accept the generous gifts he had sent. At first, Esau refused, displaying a magnanimity that shocked Jacob. "I have plenty, my brother. Keep what is yours." But Jacob insisted. "No, please, if I have found favor in your eyes, take my gift. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God, now that you have received me favorably." Esau, moved by Jacob's humility, then accepted. Despite the profound reconciliation, a lingering caution remained in Jacob. Esau suggested they travel together. But Jacob politely refused. "The children are fragile, and the flocks need rest. You go ahead, I will come later, at my own pace." Esau agreed and departed for Seir. But instead of following, Jacob took another path, settling in Shechem, where he built an altar and called the place Elohi, Israel. God, the God of Israel. This meeting with Esau wasn't just a family reunion. It was a profound milestone in Jacob's life. He no longer needed to flee, no longer needed to live in fear, no longer needed to manipulate. The man who left his land as a deceiver, limping and broken, now returned as Israel. A man transformed by the struggle with God and by the radical, unexpected grace of forgiveness. He had met God, and then he met his brother. And in both encounters, he found profound restoration. Here is your challenge. Who do you need to forgive in your own life? Or, perhaps even harder, whose forgiveness do you need to seek? Are you willing to humble yourself? To take that terrifying first step, knowing that true reconciliation, even when imperfect, can be a mirror reflecting the very face of God. The lingering road, trials, tragedies, and God's steadfast plan. Just when you think you've made it. Just when peace settles in. Life reminds you that the journey of faith is never truly over. Jacob, now Israel, was finally back in the land God had promised to his ancestors. After the reconciliation with Esau, he settled in Shechem, buying a piece of land and erecting an altar to the Lord. It seemed like the ideal place to begin again, a place of peace and rebuilding. But life and faith is rarely that simple. A tragic event shattered their fragile peace. Dinah, Jacob's daughter with Leah, was brutally raped by Shechem, the prince of that land. Outraged, consumed by fury and a desire for vengeance, Jacob's sons plotted a horrifying revenge. Simeon and Levi, with cunning reminiscent of their father, deceived the men of the city, making them believe that they could form an alliance with Jacob's family if they were circumcised. When the men were weakened and vulnerable from the procedure, the brothers attacked, mercilessly killing every male and plundering the city. Jacob was terrified. "You have brought trouble upon me. Now the peoples around us will turn against us." He reprimanded his sons, consumed by the fear of reprisals. The fear grew, a dark cloud hanging over their family. But God, ever faithful, intervened. He commanded Jacob, "Go up to Bethel and make an altar to me there." Jacob obeyed. Before leaving, he ordered everyone to rid themselves of foreign idols and purify themselves. Then, as they journeyed, God protected Jacob and his family, and no one dared to attack them. In Bethel, God appeared again to Jacob and powerfully reaffirmed the promise made to Abraham and Isaac. "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel. I will give you this land, and your descendants will be a great nation." It was the confirmation that the divine covenant, despite the mess, despite the violence, was steadfastly upon him. After this profound encounter, the family continued their journey. But a new devastating blow struck Jacob. Rachel, his beloved wife, died while giving birth to Benjamin. Amidst the profound pain, he buried her in Bethlehem, erecting a pillar over her tomb. The loss was devastating, a tearing of his soul, but Jacob moved on. He had to. He knew that his personal story, his grief, was part of something much, much greater. The unfolding of God's grand narrative for his chosen nation. After many years, Jacob finally returned to Hebron, where he found his father, Isaac, still alive. Shortly after, Isaac passed away, and Jacob and Esau together buried him. Now Jacob was truly in the heart of the promised land, surrounded by sons who would become the 12 tribes of Israel. But his path still held one last great trial: the supposed disappearance of Joseph, his favorite son, which would change his life forever. Here's your challenge. How do you hold on to God's promises when life delivers unexpected tragedies, profound losses, and the crushing weight of your past mistakes, or the mistakes of those you love? Do you believe God can still work his plan, even through the chaos and pain? The legacy, a life redeemed, a nation formed. The story of Jacob doesn't end with a triumphant return. It ends with the greatest act of surrender and trust, setting the stage for a nation. Jacob grew old, seeing his vast family multiply, but he also experienced deep, agonizing pain. The greatest of these came with the supposed death of Joseph, his most beloved son. When his sons brought back Joseph's blood-stained tunic, Jacob collapsed in mourning. "My son has been torn apart by a wild animal," he lamented. Nothing and no one could console him. Years passed, years of grief, years of famine striking his land. The only place with supplies was Egypt. With heavy heart, Jacob sent his sons to seek food. Little did he know that this desperate event would lead him to an unexpected, miraculous reunion. When his sons returned, explaining they must take Benjamin, Rachel's last son, to the Egyptian governor to get more food, Jacob hesitated. He had already lost Joseph. He could not bear to lose another son of Rachel. But the famine tightened its grip, a relentless vice, and he yielded. When his sons returned for the second time, they brought unbelievable news. Joseph was alive. He had not only survived, but had become the powerful governor of Egypt. Jacob, an old man scarred by life, at first couldn't believe it. But on hearing the details, seeing the chariots sent by Joseph to bring him to Egypt, his soul, long dormant in grief, revived. "Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go to see him before I die." The journey to Egypt was marked by overwhelming emotion. Upon arriving, Jacob and Joseph embraced in a long, deep cry. Decades of separation, of pain, of perceived loss, melted away in that embrace. "Now I can die in peace, for I have seen that you are still alive," said Jacob. In the last years of his life, Jacob lived in Egypt with his sons and grandchildren, under the protection and provision of Joseph. Before dying, he called his sons and blessed them one by one, prophesying about the future of their tribes. When it was Joseph's turn, he also blessed his grandsons, Ephraim and Manasseh, guaranteeing them a place among the tribes of Israel. Jacob died at the age of 147. His body, in a testament to faith and promise, was taken back to Canaan and buried in the cave of Machpelah, next to his parents and Leah. His legacy remained. From his 12 sons were born the tribes that would form the mighty nation of Israel, fulfilling God's unwavering promise. He who began his life deceiving and fleeing, always grasping, always calculating, ended as an honored patriarch, chosen by God to be the father of an innumerable descendants. His name would live forever, for the God of Abraham and Isaac came to be called also the God of Jacob. What legacy are you building? Are you living a life that points to God's faithfulness, His ability to use even our deepest imperfections and our most chaotic circumstances to fulfill His perfect plan? Are you trusting Him to redeem your past, transform your present, and secure your future? Just as He did for Jacob, it is a profound journey from supplanter to prince, from cunning to character, from one man's fear to a nation's destiny, and it is a journey you are invited to walk with Him.